I am Derek McCullough. I'm speaking for the negative side of the debate against the raising of the minimum wage to $10.10. And it should be noted at this point that there are ways we can observe certain trends that occur alongside minimum wage and the variances within them. For example, there is the Gini index, an economic factor in which we use to measure income equality in certain areas. We have if you what's it called? Interpolative, like one of those terms. If you look at the Gini index of states and their local minimum wages according to state laws, or whether they are at the federal minimum wage of $7.25 due to their not having minimum wage laws, or if it's lower than that, there really is no correlation. For example, the state with the lowest Gini index or the highest income equality also happens to have just a minimum wage of only 50 cents above the federal minimum wage at $7.75, that's set in law. And the highest Gini index, which is the least, but the lowest income equality, is in the District of Columbia, where our capital is located, and it only has a minimum wage of about $8.25, which is $1 above our federal minimum wage. It should also be noticed that the numbers of states that have minimum wages at the federal level is equally distributed among those that are more equal in terms of income, or among those who are less equal in terms of income, as according to information accumulated by the U.S. Census Bureau and American Community Survey. Other piece of information we can look at is in the from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. They profiled working poor in 2011, in which from 2010 to 2011 there is no change. There's no change in the number of people in poverty, and there's actually been a decrease by 0.2% in the poverty level of the working poor. And most of the arguments made in the affirmative side thus far has been assuming that the minimum wage law would be implemented perfectly, but that is not the case. The simple fact is that just because there's minimum wage, not everyone is actually being paid the minimum wage. There are exceptions. There are those who are exempt from the actual federal minimum wage law, and these include certain executives, professionals, fishermen, that's a large demographic there, certain agricultural workers, and especially those who work in greenhouses and other cultivating, you have four twice there. And also some computer system analysts, programmers, and software engineers that work in certain fields that are very, very specific. Also, only businesses that make an annual income of greater than $500,000 a year actually have to pay this minimum wage to the workers. If the business does not earn more than $500,000 in sales done or business done, then they don't have to comply to the federal minimum wage law, or that's the engage in interstate commerce, which the Commerce Clause applies, and that generally means the state can do whatever it wants. Now, the significance of that is that there are lots of people who, despite the minimum wage as it is already, they're not being paid the minimum wage. For example, there are 1.768 million people who are being paid below the federal minimum wage. Most of these, about 1.1 billion of these, are in food prep and serving businesses. Most of those, in turn, are servers, waitresses, and that's from data from the current population survey from the Bureau of Labor Statistics. It's government data, according to that's the most accurate data you can get if you want to judge the United States. And another reason for that may be in certain provisions in the minimum wage laws. For example, waiters and waitresses, they can be paid a minimum wage of actually $2.13 as long as the rest of their wage is made up in tips to the minimum wage level. However, there's not much compliance in that. Generally, lots of, who knows what the reason is, but the general fact is that they're not being paid enough. There's a number here. Let's see. Well, they're being paid on average. The mean annual wage for all waiters and waitresses, which there are a lot in this country, is actually $5 an hour. That's $2.25 below the minimum wage. And that's significant, honestly, because that's half of what the proposed $10.10, and they're not getting paid any more if we raise the minimum wage. If we raise the minimum wage, and if they're not being paid the current minimum wage of $7.25, chances are they're not being paid the new minimum wage of $10.10. Also, because of that, the affirmative models that, let's say, about 4.8 million people would be raised out of poverty cannot really be taken seriously, because it's assuming, essentially, because it's based off economic models, that everyone's going to be having to pay at least the minimum wage, which, as we can see with the several million that are not, it's not the case. They would not be raised out of poverty. It wouldn't help them at all. So there are disadvantages with this law also. Raising the minimum wage can also increase the incidence of involuntary part-time labor or of employment. Traditional economics, as stated from a paper by the Agnes Scott University, that's Georgia, I believe, that in order to make up for the equal marginal revenue for the worker, for a minimum wage increase for minimum wage increases, it is more likely for the worker to, or it is less likely for the worker to remain employed, and they may experience a reduction in hours. And this is to compensate for the increase in the wages. And while it's not significant for small minimum wage increases, it can be easily so for increases as much as is proposed by the affirmative. And the significance is that there are,
Your time's up, I'm sorry.
I have one last piece I'd like to, of course, the numbers.
Yeah, but you've got 29 seconds past the time limit, so that should have come earlier.